Hey, welcome to weekday coronavirus-driven mind stuff. My name is George Ortega, and it is 10:04 p.m. on Monday, June 29th, 2020, and this is episode number 57. And it's been a day. Got some stuff done, but not all too much really. All right, let me go back to what I was saying before, because a lot of this stuff is, inconsequential. The stuff that I talk about, the stuff that I say and all, but some of the stuff is extremely consequential. It's like, it's about our future. It's about the future of humanity. So let's go over it again, and maybe some of you will get it. Politicians have been saying, well, this is a 1 in a 100-year event, pandemic. And they discount like the SARS and the MERS and these other, Ebola and stuff that we've been lucky with, we've contained them. But this one, they point to the 1918 Spanish flu and say, well, nothing this threatening, happens more than every 100 years or so. And that's just like a really uninformed, mistaken assessment of where we are. And the reason I say that is because between 1918 and 2020, the percentage of animals farmed in factory farms, industrial farms, where the conditions are like beyond unsanitary. They're so unsanitary that there are even laws that prevent the public from going into them or videotaping them or, taking photos of them. And that should tell you everything. But anyway, so not only are there many, many more people on the planet today than there were 100 years ago, many, many more people eating meat, fish, dairy, eggs, but most of the farming is transitioned from factory farms to these factory farms, and again, Google it if you haven't, if you don't realize what's going on there. It's just these places are breeding grounds for pandemics. Anyway, so that's, so this could be, more realistically, this could be a 1 in 10-year event, 1 in 20-year event. And it, it's going to be more and more of them, as we go into the future, more people, between now and 2050, our population is going to go up from 7.5 billion to about 9 to 10 billion, and people are going to be richer, perhaps, unless we devolve, unless our economy and our whole civilization evolves. So the idea is well, we're going to want to be safe from these pandemics. And the only way that we will be safe from them is if we stop farming animals, because it's not just the factory farms that are a problem, the family farms are a problem also. The Spanish flu of 1918 is said to have originated in a family farm, not a factory farm. So that's where we are, that's where we are. And so so we've got a choice. We've got a choice. We either all go vegan, or we don't go vegan. We live in fear, we live in fear that, after 3 or 4 years, however long it takes for us to emerge from the economic fallout and, you know, all the other changes that are coming about because of this current pandemic, you know, in 3 or 4 years, we're going to have to worry about the next one, which might come in 5 years or 10 years or 15, and, you know, and that's enough to, you know, I mean, you know, we're still not, you know, seeing the total effects of this one, you know. Apparently we're halfway into it, into the first wave. There could be more waves. Some scientists have predicted this is like the measles or HIV or these contagious diseases that have never really been eradicated. They're still with us. You know, they just come back. You know, they have resurgences and all. But again, that's not, you know, our main worry is like a new one. And so we either go vegan, which is very unlikely because, well, people want to eat meat. People, you know, people are not going to willingly stop eating meat. So the only alternative we have is to switch from this farming of animals, you know, raising livestock, which incidentally is responsible for about 14% of the greenhouse gases that we emit. And by comparison, that's more than the entire transportation industry combined, you know, planes, trains, boats, cars, you name it. So in addition to just it, you know, taking a lot more land, more water, more resources. For example, it takes about, let's say, 8-9 pounds of grain to produce 1 pound of beef. And it's similar for chicken and other livestock products. So this is, you know, factory farming is very resource intensive. It pollutes our water, it pollutes, you know, gives us greenhouse gases. It's just like, it's a really terrible thing. And like, you know, I'm just talking about the effect on human beings, but like, you know, I mean, if you're a moral person, if you believe in morality, if you believe in God and that, you know, that it's good to do good, that we have a moral obligation to be good, then you know, what we're doing to these animals in factory farms is beyond horrible, beyond the Holocaust, beyond slavery, beyond, you know, anything that we've done to humans. I mean, you know, you have a female pig, a sow, who is contained in a gestation crate, you know, while they're pregnant and afterwards for months at a time. This crate is so small, the sow can't even turn around. So there are some videos that have been posted where you basically show them going insane, you know, these repetitive head movements that are indicative of insanity, you know, and you know, it's barbaric because, you know, pigs, for example, are smarter than dogs. So the argument that they don't feel pain is like so ill-informed. Anyway, so yeah, you know, our only chance of being free, not just from these pandemics, but from the fear of these pandemics, although, you know, people don't have very good memories, you know, it could be like, you know, once we're out of this, people will forget, I don't know. But if we want to be free of the future pandemic, the only way we're going to do it, given that nobody's going to go vegan, or that everybody's not going to go vegan, is to transition to lab-grown meat, cellular agriculture, it's called. Okay, that's the preferred academic term. If you want to learn more about it, go to newharvest.org. That's the premier organization that has really pioneered this movement, created the first 2 lab-grown product companies, and now basically trains scientists, obtains research for scientists doing this basic research to to eventually bring these products to market. And so like, let me, might as well, I guess I'm going to do an episode on this, whatever. So like, people will think, oh, lab grown meat, this can't be, safe. No, it's not just, in other words, like, these products have to be created in very sterile environments. I mean, complete, like, it's kind of like a brewery. If you've ever seen a microbrewery, they have these vats that they have to be sanitized. They can't, they can't be infected or infested with microbes, with foreign matter. They have to be sterile, and that's what makes them pandemic risk-free. That's what assures us that by transitioning to these foods, we can be free of the next pandemic, which isn't a surety. I mean, like, as sure as tomorrow will come, unless a comet comes and just like sends us all to kingdom come. As sure as tomorrow will come, there will be another pandemic, probably within the next 10, 15 years. Because again, our politicians, the lack of concern, the lack of action on climate change is also reflected on the lack of concern and action on this. It's not just Trump and the Republicans. The Democrats have been, inactive in this also for the most part. So, all right. So, like, getting back to the safety. First of all, what people need to realize is these products, like, for example, in 2013, they premiered the first 3 hamburger patties made by this process. Biologically, it's identical to the hamburger that you would get from a cow, beef grown from growing a cow. It's identical biologically, but actually it's healthier because, like, by controlling the nutrients, by controlling the growth medium, what we feed these cells as they replicate and grow more cells and grow more meat. And because with one cell, we can grow millions of tons of beef or chicken or fish or whatever. And so, like, by controlling the growth process, the nutrients that these cells get, we can, for example, eliminate saturated fats. We can make them much healthier, than the beef products we have now. Which incidentally, like, the #1 cause of death here in the United States is heart disease. The #1 cause of heart disease is eating meat. So that's God's way of saying, well, if you don't want to be kind to these animals, there's a price to pay. And again, for people who say, well, it's not natural, give me a break. I mean, like, your air conditioning isn't natural, your light isn't natural, your apartments aren't natural, your cars aren't natural. Like, nothing about this urbanized life that most of us live in is very natural. And then even, let's go further than that. The products you buy are processed. They are, quote unquote, manufactured in these, quote unquote, labs. Whether it's Cheerios, whatever it is, whatever food you can think of that has some processing. That's, and the chemicals, I mean, like, they're filled with chemicals. At least with these meat products, these lab-grown cell agriculture meat products, you don't need those kinds of chemicals in it. It's a much more natural process than so many foods that we buy ordinarily. So, like, this argument that it's not natural, it's just bogus. It's just people who refuse to think, refuse to do the research, or just, like, spouting ignorant, cynical, just really counterproductive views. The views of the stupid. Because, like, to pass judgment on something like this, when you don't know about it, when you haven't learned about it, when it's so important to the future of humanity, is just beyond irresponsible. It's like, anyway, so that's the thing. Last point. So yes, if we want to emerge from this current pandemic in a pandemic-free world, essentially, in a 99 point whatever % pandemic free, because that's the kind of world we can create by doing this. we have to end factory farming and family farming in this country and every country in the world. And so here's the thing. So like at the current rate of research, yeah, there may be products or two available in 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, they keep on saying that, but I've talked to some of the insiders in the industry in this, and like a lot of that is hype that the media promotes. It allows them to get more funding. They kind of like, they promise results sooner than is realistic. I mean, some estimates say that, well, this is like, to scale up from being able to grow a couple of hamburgers in a lab to the hundreds of tons of meat that we need to feed the world, may take, at the current rate of research, 10 years or longer. But that again is at the current rate of research. And again, let me say this because it's very important. Current rate of research, the top funded company of these 40 or 50 startups that are working on this, and they just started in 2013. This is a brand new industry. The top funded company, I think it's Memphis Meats. I'm not sure. There's Mosa Meats. There's a bunch of them. They received about $160 million. And most of them are lucky if they get 2 or 3 or 4 million. That's what they're working with. Now compare that to the $4 trillion we just spent to mitigate the effects of this, to repair our economy, to put in place, all these mechanisms that are a direct result of having allowed this pandemic to happen, not having prevented it. So like, it's colossally stupid. It's beyond stupid. It's evil. It's evilly stupid for us, for our politicians, to not be investing 50 billion, 100 billion at the very least, really, on this field. Because I mean, when the alternative is to have another pandemic, which may be, as I've mentioned before, a lot more deadly than this one, might spread a lot faster, might not be amenable to containment. They're beginning to create mechanisms to contain the next one. Well, no, I mean, that's just like, they don't know enough about these kinds of viruses, to be able to contain them safely. Some of the ones we've already had, in the past, have been far more dangerous than this this coronavirus. We've been lucky. We've just been lucky. That's the thing. So anyway, so that's the last part of this. If we don't spend 10, 20, 30, 50, $100 billion, for goodness sake, after spending just the United States almost $4 trillion, and we're going to spend probably another $5 trillion more to repair our economy, over the next several years or so. Do the math. You spend 100 billion now to be rid of the risk of these pandemics, or in 15 years, we go through this again, or in 10 years. There's no assurance that it won't happen 2 years after we open up again. And I mean, I tend to be religious. I tend to believe in God, and I think God is fed up with us. God is saying, well, the way you treat these animals, our lives are better, as human beings than they've ever been. Less poverty, less violence, in so many measures, less infant mortality. We're living longer. We're living better, just by so many measures. We are so blessed. And for a population, a world population, especially the first world countries like the United States, the rich countries, to receive so many blessings and ignore the suffering that we're inflicting on these farm animals is like, yeah, if God decides to send a comet, to just blow us all to kingdom come, you couldn't blame him. You couldn't blame God, because that's how evil we've become. That's how spoiled, how ungodly. So, and all right, so we do this, and I've got a I've got to get more detailed information on the pandemics. Actually, I mean, what I can do, and I don't think this will be a copyright infringement because this is for educational purposes. And for example, like the law is that if you present, let's say 15% of, let's say a journal article of a piece of work, you know, up to 15% for educational purposes, then you can present it. You don't even need permission from the people who created it. So there's a video by Michael Greger, who and in part of it he shows the rapid rate of these infectious diseases, especially since the 80s. You know, they just like exponentially, pretty much. I mean, like, you know, it's kind of like, you know, that hockey stick graph with climate change that zooms right up. It's the same thing with these pandemics. So we have been lucky, you know, that we haven't had more, that they haven't been more serious, and our luck has run out. And it's, you know, if you want to like be moral again about it, it's not really a matter of luck. It's like, hey, we deserve this this pandemic because of our evil, because of our callous cruelty toward these animals. And you know, I could get a level into this more deep and absolve us, you know, exploring illusion of free will. I mean, like, no, it's not really, you know, it's, you know, what's happening is destined to happen, fine. But, and I would be the first to defend us, you know, from that perspective, that people are unwilling to accept because they misinterpret it as oh, we're robots, rather than saying, oh, we're manifesting God's will, which I think is a much more healthy, more accurate, and more elevating perspective. They say, well, we don't want to like just, you know, believe that nothing we do is up to us. But anyways, like, so yeah, nothing we do is up to us. So we are absolved of this on the most fundamental level. You know, it had to happen because of causality, because of the causal progression of reality, of our universe, of our world. But having said that, the way our world is that we still get rewarded and punished for what we do. In other words, like, we're not really responsible for what we do when we do good. And we've done a lot of good, you know, to be able to feed so many people, clothe so many people, just provide for the welfare of so many people over decades. I mean, I'm not here to say that we are completely, you know, evil. We've done a lot of good, but you know, for example, like let's say a slaveholder who goes to church every Sunday, you know, but is a slaveholder. I mean, like, you know, or somebody, yeah, no, you can't claim to be a good person while eating meat that you pay somebody to torture animals for, you know, just so you can get it at less expensively. And that's what we do. And this is like everybody. This is like, you know, clerics, you know, academics. It's like, you know, people who should know better, whose business it is to know better, especially clerics. You know, they don't get this. They don't want to get this. They don't want to confront they're more afraid of their congregations than they are of God. That's their problem. They don't understand God well enough. They might perhaps understand the Bible, but the Bible doesn't understand God as much as it could or should. I mean, it's an evolving understanding. It's like, you know, we're you know, some of us are just caught in the understanding we had like 3,000 years ago or longer. Anyway, so 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Let me segue. Sometimes this kind of stuff drives me nuts, you know, when I see, you know, what's going on TV, you know, with the violence and all. And you know, why am I concerned with this? Because my basic concern is happiness, not just human happiness, but the happiness of all sentient beings, you know, domesticated animals or animals that shouldn't be domesticated. And like, I refuse, it's been difficult over the last few days for whatever reason, but I refuse to allow this to impinge upon my happiness, especially since I'm not part of the problem, since I'm so deeply invested in the solution, So I say to myself, well, now some people should be upset. If getting upset about this moves people to action, then yeah, get upset because to be indifferent, is not the answer. But for those of us who are doing, pretty much as we should be expected to do, we're not doing a great job apparently because nobody wants to listen. But I tell myself, it's not going to do me or the animals or anyone good if I lose my happiness. So I work on my happiness, and I tell myself, well, I may completely fail. Yeah, this civilization, this human civilization, may be on a downward spiral from which we won't recover. We may be back in the Stone Ages, because what happens is, like, economic instability breeds conflict, both internal and geopolitical like somebody like Trump, I mean, they push the button, nuclear war, and there goes everything. So yeah, this could end up really badly, but it doesn't, do a person who's doing as much good as one should be expected to do much good to sacrifice one's happiness. Again, if you're not within this, yeah, I suggest you feel a little pain, to maybe it'll awaken you to what these animals are going through. But I feel like there's that guy Jonathan Edwards, who was this like preacher in the I don't know, 1700s. It was a fire and brimstone. He was just like, you guys better like get your act together, or God's gonna just, and like that's what's happening really. I mean, it's not fire and brimstone, but it's like, it's this slow, punishing, ungodly, surreal circumstance. All right, well, I'm out of time, and hey, if I devote the entire show to this, I've done something good, because this is more important than my life, certainly. So again, Monday through Friday, channel 76, White Plains Community Media, 76 if you're Optimum, 45 if you're Verizon, and you can catch the shows online at White Plains Community Media's website or on YouTube. And so I guess you're seeing this on Tuesday, and I will be back with another episode. And maybe between now and then I'll come up with some more substantive information on the rate of pandemics, rate of increase, and hopefully I'll convince you. Okay, take care.